Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but hopefully we're coming in loud and clear. Very glad to have you here and with us. We, of course, got a lot of business to attend to today. And so, a quick preview on what's coming up, and then we'll zoom in for further detail. But Pam Bondi now unleashing, saying that we're going to have a bunch of prosecutors scrutinizing the cases that are possible against people attacking the ICE facilities. And so she just dropped this memo yesterday evening. We'll go through it and see what the latest is. But she is saying in this document, you can see it right here, right there. Look at that. Enough is enough. Ain't that the truth? And so we'll go through what that looks like. We also had some arrests take place. Apparently, the FBI rounded up 4 individuals who were shining lasers at ICE helicopters. We got updates on that. We got more from Bill Malugin. And of course, a lot of the illegal immigration conversation is making its way over to the shutdown kerfuffle. And we've got Maxine Waters out having a conversation about this, saying, we love illegal aliens, okay? We're going to fight for them no matter what, even above and beyond our own constituents. And so we'll listen to what the latest is on this. Looks like the shutdown is happening. This morning on our members only stream, we had a lot of fun with the sombrero and the mustache, the meme of Hakee, which is causing a lot of melting down out there. And so we got some reaction on that. And of course, Trump is out today doing a bunch of stuff, and we have a short clip from him. Then we got some legal updates to jump into. We've got this report over from Just the News and the actual case decision that came down out of the District of Massachusetts, and it is against Rubio. This judge went on a tear, and he was explaining why the Palestinian protesters who have come in from foreign lands to agitate all across America, why their free speech rights are more privileged than the president's national security concerns. And so this will be rich. So we'll go through that. We'll see what the latest is there before we turn our attention over to California, because, man, this is a fun one. This is a lawsuit brought by Harmeet Dillon and the Civil Division against the Sheriff's Department in California. And I was reading through this just as briefly this morning, and I saw this stat, which is just incredible. Do you know that between January 2024 and March 2025, they approved, get this, look at this number. If you want an application for a concealed carry license, what's your likelihood of being approved? Here it is, 0.05%. It's very California, not even a percent. All right, 0.05%. All right, so we'll go through this lawsuit. Obviously, that feels like it's a constitutional infringement upon our rights. And so we've got a great stream planned ahead. Thanks for being here while we go through the technical difficulties. Hopefully, we're coming in loud and clear. Now, before we get into any business on the day, we have a great new sponsor of the show, and we're very excited to tell you about him because it's all about blood flow, baby. And of course, we want to increase our blood flow. Of course, you know, if you don't have good blood flow, you could be feeling tired or sluggish or foggy. It could be because your blood's not moving around your body appropriately. And so I wanted to share with you Blood Flow 7. It's by Juvenon. It's a scientifically designed product to help support healthy circulation, helping you feel energized, clear-headed, and vibrant all over again. It's packed with natural ingredients like nitrosigine, S7 trans-resveratrol, and it works by boosting nitric oxide levels in your body. It's a molecule that relaxes blood vessels, helping your blood flow freely to every corner of your body. And that means more oxygen, more nutrients to your brain, to your muscles, and even places that need a little extra help as you age, if you know what I'm saying. So with just 1 dose a day, you can reclaim your stamina, support heart health, improve overall vitality, all without caffeine or other stimulants. So try it today. Try Blood Flow 7 today. Feel the difference where it matters most, right inside your veins. Go to bloodflow7.com/watch. Again, bloodflow7.com/watch. Very easy because we are watching the watchers over here. All right. So, and thank you for supporting our sponsor of today's episode. The links are in the description below. and we appreciate you checking them out. Now, without any further ado, let's get into business on the day. Here is the latest. Pam Bondi sends a memo unleashing her prosecutors to respond to these attacks on federal officers at various locations around the country. We see that she posted this, releasing what she shared with the entire DOJ apparatus. You can see this is a memo that came out September 29th, Office of the Attorney General, going out to the FBI, Director of the FBI, Director, ATF, Director, U.S. Marshal Service, Administrator, DEA, and the Director of the Executive Office of the U.S. Attorneys. Everybody, Cash and the rest of them, getting on notice and responding or having to field this message from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. She writes this. All right, everybody, pay attention. As President Trump stated, we are witnessing a new era of extreme political violence that is, quote, a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. Footnote 1, citing the White House presidential action. Now, domestic terrorists, in case we forgot, have firebombed Tesla vehicles and dealerships. Would-be assassins have tried to murder President Trump twice and tried to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Assassins in Minnesota have gunned down lawmakers and Catholic school children in 2 separate incidents. And just a few weeks ago, an assassin murdered Charlie Kirk in cold blood, saying riots in LA and Portland reflect a more than 1,000% increase in attacks on U.S. immigration and customs officers since January 21, 25, compared to the same time last year. 1,000%. Last week, a sniper opened fire from a nearby rooftop on an ICE Dallas field office, leaving 1 dead and 2 others critically wounded. This past weekend, while Illinois Governor PB&J Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, we know him from Chicago, while they were taking a break from their donuts, instead they were villainizing ICE agents as Nazis, they call them, and secret police. More than 200 rioters blocked access to one of the gates in front of an ICE processing facility in the Chicago area, chanting, "Arrest ICE." They were screaming, "Shoot ICE," and attempting to forcibly and illegally trespass on federal property, which sounds like an insurrection to us. At least 1 rioter was arrested with a firearm, saying rioters will arrive with boxes of fireworks, N95 masks, gas masks, goggles, knee and elbow protection, and large quantities of food and water to support their insurrectionary efforts. So likewise, rioters in Portland, Oregon have repeatedly attacked and laid siege to an ICE processing center. These rioters have been well organized and they appear to be well funded. Enough is enough, says Pam Bondi. The DOJ will stand strong when federal law enforcement officers are attacked or threatened for doing their sworn duty on behalf of the U.S. government. Pam writes, I am directing the Bureau of ATF, the U.S. Marshals, the DEA, and the FBI, that's you, Cash, to immediately direct all necessary officers and agents to defend ICE facilities and personnel whenever and wherever they come under attack, including in Portland and Chicago. Our officers will suppress all unlawful rioting and arrest every person we will see suspected of threatening or assaulting a federal law enforcement officer or interfering with federal law enforcement operations. I am further directing the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Districts of Oregon and the Northern District of Illinois to charge all such persons with the highest provable offense available under the law. Thank you, Pam. All state and local, and they don't have to make them up, like the prior DOJ did. 1512C, obstruction, all those things. Just charge them for what they're already obstructing. All state and local enforcement officers protecting ICE facilities and personnel are hereby added to a temporary ICE Protection Task Force alongside each of the department's law enforcement components. So this is a full stand-up. The U.S. Attorney's Office for each district shall, and if they don't want to, then this is going to be a problem, they can resign or be fired, shall prosecute any individual who assaults or forcibly impedes or intimidates these officers, who interferes with the performance of their official duties, or who attempts to do so, consistent with the law, of course. I further direct the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs and Community-Oriented Policing Service, COPS, isn't that fun, to provide as soon as possible, consistent with existing authority, grant funding and training and technical assistance, and it's getting funded too. This support may include funding for the purchase of body-worn cameras and other equipment as deemed necessary, in conjunction ATF, DEA, FBI, and the U.S. Marshals. So Pam continues in her letter. That was only page 2. She writes the following. She says, the charging priorities directed by this memo are not limited to those criminals who are caught red-handed committing acts of violence in personnel. The president is exactly right. We must disband and uproot networks, entities, and organizations that promote organized violence, violent intimidation, conspiracies against rights, and other efforts to disrupt the functioning of a democratic society. The DOJ will arrest and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law every person who aids, abets, or conspires to commit these crimes. If you're purchasing the water bottles and dropping them off from Costco, indict that man. Whether through funding, coordination, planning, or other means, we're coming for you. Working together with our interagency partners, we will take back our country and make America safe again. Signed by Pam Bondi over from the DOJ. And we hope that there is some action behind those words from the Justice Department. Now, there's more. We also see that they are making some arrests. The FBI rounded up these folks, saying that FBI Portland and our partners at Homeland and Seattle Homeland, they searched a residence associated with a subject who is alleged to have aimed a laser at a CBP helicopter that's conducting law enforcement activity in the skies over Portland. There was another aircraft in the area. They're beaming him at them too. And that homeless dude in D.C. was beaming him at Trump's Marine One while he was on Marine One. We covered that story. FBI Portland said, agents made contact with the subject as well as 3 other inhabitants who were at the residence. And I know, hold on to your hats for this one. But guess what? Check this one out. All 4 suspects are in the U.S. illegally and were placed into the custody of ERO Seattle personnel. I know. Shocking. I know. Can't believe it. The laser that was used was acquired during the course of the investigation. The federal government will not tolerate violence against federal officers, nor will we tolerate assaults on personnel, commercial, or government aircraft, okay? They're attacking in the skies now. Illegals. So we also saw that Pam Bondi released that memo. We had more reporting here. Bill Malugin says, yep, they made contact with the suspect, found 3 others at the residence. Now, all of them are being deported. We don't know if they were all shining the laser, but their amigo was. And so they're now paying the price. Now, somebody who is a big fan of illegal aliens and wants to pay for everything for them, who is very upset that the Democrats are going to shut down the government, is out talking with this woman over from Real Lindell TV, who did a great interview with Maxine Waters. Here's what this one sounded like.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, Americans
Excuse
are going
me,
to be furloughed.
stop it right there.
Whoa.
We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who
illegals
would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government shutdown, even if it means giving health care to people who aren't American citizens?
Well, you
Yes.
keep, that's what you're pushing on. What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
You're
asking
divisive.
questions.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no,
You're
that's
being
what-
divisive. No,
No, I'm
please.
not.
You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
All right. So Maxine Waters doesn't like that question. Shout out to that reporter. And we have a good explanation for that, because you're going to hear this talking point as this shutdown comes to a careening close. The timeline just ticking away, and not looking like we're going to get a solution on this anytime soon. But here was John Thune pushing back on this ridiculous claim. They always come out and they say, it's illegal for illegals to get health care. You're like, well, who's paying for it? Are they paying for all the health care? Where's the money coming from? Obviously, it's coming from somewhere, and money is very difficult to follow, especially when you're Democrats, individuals, because they just pass it around between all their shell companies before it ends up in Hunter Biden's crack fund. But here is the conversation. John Thune was out today explaining how this actually works. They just fund different things and move the money around to go to the illegals.
Good to have you on this morning.
Hey, Joe.
When did you get to that spot there? Did you hear Leader Jeffries? We just had an interview with him that went back and forth on a lot of the different contentious points. Were you able to hear any of that?
I did hear, yeah, he did hear a good amount of it, Joe.
You did? Can you clear up a couple of the contentious points? He says outright that it's a Republican, he called it actually not just a talking point, a Republican lie, that there's any proposal put forth by Democrats to cover the health care of illegal aliens. What does that come from? Where's that difference? How do you reconcile what he says and what Republicans have been telling us?
Well, they repeal all the reforms that we made to Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill, Joe. That's where that comes from. And there were a lot of federal dollars being used. The way they do it, and California is a good example, they use provider taxes. They tax their hospitals to get more revenue in so they can match it, because the expanded population in Medicaid has a 90% federal match. We call it 90% FMAP. And then they get more federal money, and then they use the other dollars. They're all fungible. They use those to cover illegal immigrants. So they do it, and there are lots of ways that they have maneuvered around that, but it is a fact, and they don't like that fact, but they are repealing all of that with their proposal, and so it's absolutely accurate to characterize it that way. And the other thing I would say, Joe, is it's a $1.5 trillion in new spending hung on, attached to a 7-week continuing resolution to fund the government to keep the doors open. Do they have any less leverage seven weeks from now? 7 weeks on November the 21st, they're going to have the same leverage then that they have today, but we will hopefully by then have passed more appropriations bills, which really is what this is all about. And then if they want to have a discussion about the premium tax credits, we're happy to have that.
Keep hearing from your side. It's just a continuing resolution on something Democrats already had agreed to. Leader Jeffries made a point that it was not something that Democrats agreed to. It was a partisan Republican bill that was passed, I guess he said, in March. So you shouldn't be surprised that we're not going to go for it this time.
Well, the Democrat leaders in both the House and Senate Appropriations committees, and this is where this should be done, Joe, agreed on the November 21st date. So that's just not accurate. And by the way, this right here, this is the bill. It's 24 pages. It keeps the government open. This is a partisan bill? I find that hard to believe. This is a simple extension of government funding so that we can complete and finish the appropriations work, something that was never done when the Democrats had the majority of the United States Senate. So we're going to try and get approps bills done, and we can have that conversation about a premium tax credit solution, which I offered to them yesterday. But they are, and I'm going to tell you, just in the Senate at least, politically speaking, Chuck Schumer needs a Schumer shutdown. And I think that's what we're probably careening toward.
And it looks like the numbers on that over from Polymarket, thank you, chat, for suggesting taking a look at it. It's at 92%. So the deadline is tonight, and the Senate looks like they're in session right now, and let's tune in on that to see if there's any activity. Here's what C-SPAN has for us live. Not much happening now, but let's see who's... Oh, there's Ted Cruz. And who else we got? All right. Recognize anyone else? I think that's Tim Kaine in the Insane Brain. over here, Tim Kaine in the brain, and others. All right, so we'll see if anything gets done on that. But as it stands, not looking like it's going to. Polymarket saying, well, we're going into a shutdown. All right. So we have Maxine unhappy about it. We also saw that Trump was trolling the heck out of Hakee with his sombrero and his mustache, which I thought looked pretty good. It looked pretty, festive of him. And if you've ever been to Mexico, it's hard to leave without having a sombrero on your head because they're just amazing hats. So here is this lady very unhappy about this. Wanted to share this with you. We got a full segment on the Hakee meme coming out. We talked about that this morning on the member stream and we're laughing our butts off. But here is what this lady said in response.
That's right. And then what does that shameful man do? After a meeting where you're supposed to be working out details, where you're supposed to be negotiating a deal, you post something that draws a sombrero and a mustache on the leader with whom you're supposed to be.
Yeah, he looks muy bonita. It's amazing. Increíble. So anyways, we appreciate the Democrats giving it their best attempt. They don't want to talk about their policies at all. So they'd rather just get in front of the cameras and screech and shout about sombreros and more. But Trump is right. Pam Bondi, the DOJ, the FBI, the DEA, hopefully looking into all of these organizations that are propping up these communist insurrections all across America that are being funded, having a sustained night after night obstructive effect.
Mr. Padilla.
And threatening American law enforcement officials. And they're still voting over there in the Senate. So we'll see if we get an update on that. But here is what the president had to say today, speaking to the military.
Together with many of you in the room, we've brought back the fundamental principle that defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia, while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms.
No, and many of them are teachers and doctors and lawyers and truck drivers, and probably fewer truck drivers, but there's a lot of people in there who are giddy and excited about more dead fascists, according to their own language. Pretty sick stuff out there. So we're happy to see Pam Bondi and the DOJ step it up. We're playing with people who are operating by a different set of morals, and the ends justify the means. They don't want to talk. They want to win, and they're not winning. So they're getting backed into a corner, and they're acting out, shooting people in the neck and attacking federal officers and shooting their own people, detainees, because they're incompetent to boot. But this is happening. Of course, we're happy to see where it goes. And Pam Bondi sent the memo. We'll see if the agencies receive. All right. Now, we'll keep our eye on what's going on. I was looking for a vote count. Looks like they're voting on something. And I wanted to pull this up while we were here so we could just kind of maybe keep this on in the background. But the White House is playing their own words back. That's pretty funny. And what else is live? Let me just pull this up real quick to see if there's anything good. The National Desk is covering it. AP is covering it. But they don't have a vote total. So this is what the AP's got for us. So we don't really know. All right, so that's happening. We'll keep our eye on it. We'll see if we have a shutdown by the time the show is over. A boy can dream. All right, so we'll come back to that and see what else is going on over there. But we had a not so good verdict that came down. Of course, it will be appealed. And this will be another very interesting one for the Supreme Court to settle. But here is the decision coming out of Massachusetts. Another federal judge thinks that he's running the country. This one saying, actually, Marco Rubio, we're not going to be revoking these visas of these foreign agitators who've come into our country to cause a ruckus. Of course, in this case, we're talking about the Palestinians and how they had their visas revoked because the White House said, we don't need your foreign conflicts here. And from my perspective, I don't really care what the nationality is. If anybody's coming in here, bringing with them their foreign conflicts, they can leave that at home. They're guests in our country. They're not entitled to a visa, and they can be revoked. If you get a jaywalking ticket, your visa can be revoked, okay, if it's a threat to national security, as the statute will say. So if you can make that argument, then the default should go to Rubio. That has been his position. But now this judge came out and said, you can't do this because this is suppressing foreign agitators in America who are not U.S. citizens. It's suppressing their free speech. And that's more important than American executive branch officials' interpretation of national security. So foreigners above American executive officials who've been elected to execute national law. And you might disagree. You might say, well, you know, this feels pretextual and maybe Rubio is just attacking the Palestinians because they're pro-Israel or whatever that is. That's their judgment. And this judge doesn't get the right to override that by extending our Bill of Rights to all of his sympathetic plaintiffs. But we'll see where this goes. Of course, it's coming out of Massachusetts, so you know what to expect. But look at all these people suing. It's a big decision. We'll hit the highlights. All these people suing. American Association of University Professors, Harvard faculty, American Association at NYU, Rutgers, all their professors, and the Middle East Studies Association. Wow, so communist and foreign aligned organizations now suing Marco Rubio, Kristi Noem, Homeland, and President Trump. And this judge who issued this is Judge DJ Young. And let's look him up. Judge DJ Young. I think he was a Reagan appointee. Let's pull this one up. William G. Young, senior judge over in the District of Massachusetts, appointed by Reagan back in 1985. Heck of a year. And he was there. He's been there for a while. He also advised Joe Biden. He was going to retire and then went to senior status. And he's been around, obviously, for a while. All right, so that's who wrote the decision. Here is what he said. Proposed by Congress in 1789 and ratified in 1791, the First Amendment to the Constitution is a beautiful thing. Its words are carved in New Hampshire granite on the exterior of the very courthouse in which this court sits. So we know where this one's going to go. Congress shall make no law. We love the First Amendment, but if we're going to get a big lecture about the First Amendment, we know what he's going to do here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And in there, it doesn't say that any of that applies to foreigners, right? It says Congress shall make no law establishing religion, but there's other laws that Congress has passed about visas and national security. So there's two separate competing issues here. Let's talk about them. On January 20th, the first day that Trump took office, he promulgated 26 executive orders. It was a flurry of fun. One of them was called Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship. He said, we're going to go after anybody who unconstitutionally abridges the free speech of any American citizen. And Trump here makes clear that the First Amendment's protection of speech applies to citizens alone. Okay, that's Trump's position. Does our Bill of Rights protect the whole planet? Is that how that works? And so we have to afford that to everybody who's not even an American citizen? How can you even manage that, practically speaking? And to an unconstitutionally narrow view of citizenship at that. Now, this judge wants to lop it all over everybody. This case, so in other words, you can have a bunch of foreigners come in, bring with them their foreign conflicts, and muck up our colleges and our businesses and get in our streets and mess up our society. How is that good for America at all? Diversity? Is that what your idea of diversity is? They can advocate for their foreign conflicts in their homelands. This case, this judge writes, perhaps the most important ever to fall within the jurisdiction of this district court, give me a break, squarely presents the issue whether non-citizens lawfully present here, contingent on their visas in the United States, actually have the same free speech rights as the rest of us. Why should they? They're not citizens. Are there certain privileges that come with being a citizen? Of course. That's why it's valuable to be a citizen. That's why they don't come in here and they're just granted citizenship. No, they're granted visas. They're on a probationary period in many cases. The court answers this constitutional question unequivocally. Yes, they do. They have the same. He says no law means no law. There isn't any law that says visa holders can't express free speech rights. That's not what we're talking about. So let's see what he makes up. The First Amendment does not draw President Trump's invidious distinction, and it is not found in our history or jurisprudence. No, because we're talking about citizens. Have we seen a bunch of foreign people on visas now suing with Harvard, historically speaking? Or is this a new issue where we have massive immigration that was created by the Democrats and is now causing an enemy within to percolate their foreign conflicts adverse to America's interest? No one's freedom of speech is unlimited, of course, maybe unless you're like a Palestinian. Then these limits are the same for both citizens and non-citizens alike. So again, this type of stuff agitates me because there's almost no distinction between being a citizen and a non-citizen. Our citizenship is sacred. They don't just get to water it down by saying it applies to everybody all over the planet. So as long as you can get in and get a visa, you can come here and you can use your speech to cause problems in America intentionally and then rally America to get engaged in your foreign conflicts. It's basically like you're a foreign agent. We don't want that in our country. And you can't come in here under the guise of being a student or something in order to justify that exploitation. We should have sanctity on our borders. And if you want to come in here, you agree you're going to be on good behavior. And that means you're not wrecking universities that should be focused on American values and not your foreign wars. With this Constitution ruling firmly undergirding its approach, the court here held a full hearing and a 9-day bench trial. Oh my gosh, this guy is definitely senior status. He's like bored out of his friggin' mind. And this is his big, finest, opus. On the issue of whether the rights of these plaintiffs and their constitutional freedom of speech have been unconstitutionally chilled by the deliberate conduct of Trump. We heard 15 witnesses, 250 exhibits consisting of documents, photographs, and video clips. And having carefully considered the entirety of the record, the court finds that Christie and Rubio, together with other officials, deliberately and with purposeful aforethought. He's like a murder case. Like malice aforethought or something. It's like murder. Okay, yes, he's murdering everybody by revoking their visas. So dramatic. Did so concert their actions and those of their two departments intentionally to chill the rights to freedom of speech. Yeah, I would agree, right? It is going to chill the speech of the visa people here, and it should. That's the point. We don't need to import arguments over foreign conflicts in America. You might say we should. You might say that's a good policy position or whatever. I would disagree. But that's not what Rubio and Christie Noem have decided. So this judge doesn't get to substitute his judgment for that. And their actions, it chills the rights, and they can peaceably assemble of the non-citizen plaintiff members. What remains after is to consider what, if anything, we can do because their constitutional rights have been violated. That's what this judge is finding. These foreigners who are agitators, who have had their visas revoked by the decision of a duly nominated and Senate-confirmed Secretary of State and Department of Homeland Security Secretary, are violating the constitutional rights of foreigners. I'm so sick of it. So actually, he says, there is but little dispute over the facts. Yeah, it's pretty clear. You've got all these organizations, AAUP, and their labor unions, and just, little cabals of communists, basically, who want to water down the distinction between citizens and non-citizens. Our sacred constitution applies to everybody in the world when it suits them, and it applies to citizens, doesn't apply to citizens whenever we need to invoke it to protect our rights. Isn't that fun? They use the Constitution against us in both ways. Water it down when we'd like it applied to us and open it up to the rest of the world. So illegal alien criminals get due process rights and need Article 3 criminal trials before they are deported. It's insane. No sane nation would do this. AAUP is a national organization, and it has chapters all over the place. The Middle East Studies Association, MESA, is another one. And what is their mission? According to its website, its mission is to, quote, foster the study of the Middle East, to promote high standards of scholarship and teaching, and to encourage public understanding of the region and its peoples through programs, publications, and services. So it sounds like it's a foreign operation that is, to me, trying to shift public opinion of the American public. And if it's the Israelis doing it, if it's the Ukrainians doing it, if it's the friggin' English doing it, it should be denoted. If you've got influencers flying all over the place, or these foreign organizations that are trying to manipulate public opinion in America, they should be held to high, strict scrutiny, because we don't want that in America. We want American values and love of our Constitution, not having it watered down by all these subgroups of communists. So Congress passed the INA, says the judge. Great. We know it. And guess what? The Secretary of State has significant authority to exclude or to classify as deportable non-citizens and to revoke the visas, okay? Rubio has that power. And if you don't like the law, Congress, if Congress is mad about this, then they shouldn't, first of all, have delegated it to him. And they can change the statutes if they want to, but they haven't. And so now this is this judge substituting their judgment for Rubio's. And again, you might disagree with Rubio and say, Rob, should have more voices here, bring in all the foreigners, let's have tons of conflicts, let everybody say whatever they want. More speech is better than, less speech and all the things. And I would agree. I'm a very strong supporter of the First Amendment, obviously, but we don't have to extend every single important thing that is good for us in America to the rest of the planet. Okay. That's the whole benefit of having a nation that we are citizens of. For non-citizens attempting to gain entry, there are rules. And Congress has clarified, they've said a non-citizen is generally not excludable because of their past statements or belief, unless the Secretary of State, again, there's these carve-outs, personally determines that the non-citizen's admission would compromise a compelling U.S. foreign policy interest. And you might say that and Rubio can come up with a million reasons for that. He can say, well, Israel's our strongest ally, right? Whether you agree or disagree with that, and make that argument. And these people are coming in here and they're agitating in our campus and it's impacting our relationship with our ally. I think that's kind of probably a weak argument, but you could make that argument. You could say that the United States wants to remain neutral in these arguments. And these people are causing national security concerns because it's driving us into one particular camp. We're acting as a liaison, fostering the conflict here. Or that it's a direct threat, right? These people are instigating and agitating to the point that there might be terror cells or terrorist attacks, or maybe there's some classified documentation of some other groups funding some of these people, acting under the color of these organizations. A million reasons. Pick one. But Rubio did, and the judge doesn't like it. So the law says if it is a compelling U.S. foreign policy interest, the judge wants to substitute it out. So for non-citizens already present in the United States, the U.S. Secretary has reasonable grounds to believe that they could be deportable. There are certain exceptions to these things, lots of law. And now, if you have visa revocations, here's how that works. The Department of State is also charged with doing the following things. We know Homeland Security, lots of law, lots of background on what everybody does and how this works. The technical stuff. Now, since March, the process for initiating removal has been pretty straightforward. You have a referral letter, it goes up, bunch of approvals and more. Now, we get to some current events. Back in September 2021, during the Biden eras, Alejandro Mayorkas, who led the invasion of our country, who is a treasonous person, said, we're going to invade our country, and people's political associations shall never be factors in deciding enforcement actions, in his memo, because he wanted these foreign conflicts to be brought here so that they could subvert the American government and the American culture and the American way of life. Now, everybody has to be shackled to one side of this debate, which has hardly anything to do with America. It's a foreign conflict that's been around for thousands of years. And now you've got huge segments of our entire society that are like, you have to be drawn to one of these two teams, like it's a baseball game or something like that, sucking up oxygen out of the entire conversation when we have a lot of other domestic issues to care about here. So he comes, he wants to bring in everybody from every country, all the MS-13 gang members, all the Tren de Aragua people. Then we have the 10/7 terror attack in Israel. He goes through the background on that. Then demonstrations on college campuses popped up. And in the wake of Hamas and the 10-7, Biden and their foreign policy was staunchly pro-Israel under Biden, says this judge. Now, if anything, it has become even more strongly pro-Israel, following in lockstep, wow, this judge, in foreign policy of the state of Israel. And I think there's accuracy to that. So then, Trump comes in. January 20th, upon Trump's inauguration, he sends another executive order. He says, if you espouse a hateful ideology, that's going to be a problem. He says, we do not want you here if you're going to be bearing hostile attitudes towards America, towards our citizens and our culture. He said, it shall be the policy of the United States to combat anti-Semitism vigorously using all available and appropriate legal tools. And I don't know why they have to single out anti-Semitism. That feels very favored. And, it's the same thing. Like Biden could come out and they could just say transphobia or homophobia or xenophobia or Islamophobia. I heard that right after 9/11. Everything was Islamophobic. If you're like, well, we don't want to get blown up by terrorists, like you're an Islamophobe. You're like, no. So the administration, I think, actually, undermines their arguments when they single it out. It's just like it's targeting. Just like, they could come out BLM, we BLM and black people or trans people or whatever, right? It's the same thing. So this makes it, to the judge's point, more about the content rather than the conversation, okay? It's not content neutral if it's going to be attacking anti-Semitism, like if that's going to be its focus. Now, the executive order reaffirmed, they could just say, we don't want college protest. And anybody on college campuses who's espousing foreign agitating views from any side, we don't care what it is. If the Israelis come out and they start, smashing their flags in people's faces or whatever, then that's also a problem, right? They can make it more neutral. This makes it more one-sided, and it's hard to argue against it if they write it in the executive order. That executive order reaffirmed an earlier executive order and directs additional measures to advance. And again, to me, is unnecessary to the final conclusion. Like, you don't need to add in an anti-Semitic policy. You can just say, we don't want foreign agitators in our country. And it's pretty simple. They would cover that too. But this makes it more specific. And the judge is obviously, not happy about it. He's even pointing back here. It's like, you're doing the bidding of Israel, essentially. And if they write that into the law, or if they write in that you don't get FEMA money because you have a business that condemns Israel or whatever in your blue state, you don't get FEMA money, that type of stuff is literally challenging your ability to express an opinion rather than making it content neutral that just applies to everybody. So that executive order reaffirmed an earlier executive order, and they're going to take additional measures to go after college campuses. According to the president, the attacks unleashed a wave of vile anti-Semitic discrimination. Jewish students have faced an unrelenting barrage, and the president ordered, I want you to go after anti-Semitism, which is also pretty interesting because like a lot of Christians and Catholics have been shot lately. And we don't see a lot of executive orders on that per se, right? Going after anti-Christian beliefs, like the Mormons who just got attacked or the Catholics who just got attacked. It's very interesting how our federal government springs into action for certain causes and then ignores others. Additionally, the president ordered that the Secretary of State and Homeland shall include in their reports who should get revoked. And then the president also issued a fact sheet. Yeah, here you go. Investigate and punish anti-Jewish racism in leftist, anti-American colleges and universities. Yeah, and the judge is just going to keep beating them over the head with this because they put it in the writing. And, schools are different. Like colleges are very different than an open forum. You don't have all of the same rights and privileges when you're a student on a college campus because there's an interest in creating a safe environment for all students. If you want to go exercise your free speech rights, go do that somewhere else. But when you then filter this through a content charged limitation, it's obvious what you're doing, and the judge is calling them out on it. On February 3rd, the DOJ announced, again, a task force to combat anti-Semitism. And honestly, I think this stuff and, reading Charlie Kirk's letters and all these things, I'm not sure this is the right way for the Israeli government and or the Jewish people, if they're not one and the same, still trying to figure that out, to actually combat anti-Semitism. All it's going to look like is that you're using the government to censor and silence people. And none of us like that. Nobody likes that. They did that during COVID. They tried to do that during Ukraine. They canceled a bunch of us off the internet for being harmful and dangerous, for questioning elections and questioning the CDC. Anytime you try to squeeze this stuff, I think you just maximize it. That's my personal opinion on it. And the courts are responding now. Now, again, I still think Rubio has more power. Let's go through it. They say, on February 28th, Rubio issued a diplomatic cable. He said, we're going to do maximum screening and vetting, and we're going to identify these people and revoke. It's going to be called catch and revoke. If you are an alien misusing a visa, the officer should generally revoke it. The cable anticipates domestic consumption, and they sent it out. It went out to 200 people. The catch and revoke guidance was apparently successful, and they delayed the doubling of visa revocations. So it kind of postponed some things. Then they held multiple meetings, and they even had a not secret meeting. With respect to certain members at the meeting, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller was there, is also an advisor. Then there was another meeting to talk about these visa revocations. The judge is referencing the trial testimony because this all came out in a trial. As for the content of the communications, they assert privilege, but the court infers that these were about Trump's executive orders. So kind of just filling in the gaps there. Then they start to investigate campus protesters. They say, if you're in violation of immigration and customs laws, you got to go. No direction or definition was provided. What is a terrorist organization per se? If you're pro-Palestinian, are you automatically a terrorist? According to this administration? A.D. Hatch was told by Homeland to review the names of student protesters on the Canary Mission website, which contains a database of over 5,000 individuals. The mission says that this documents individuals and organizations that promote hatred of the USA, Israel, and Jews on North American college campuses from the Canary website. Within a week of the early March meeting, the so-called Tiger Team went to the website and would decide what to do. The term Tiger Team is not pejorative. It's an internal practice. They're working quickly. So due to the workload, they went through, they looked at all 5,000 people on some website, and they were analyzing what to do. Their list made up the bulk of the sources. So they just went from some, entity that was keeping track of this. Who is this? Who was doing that? Thinking in general terms. They go through some of the transcripts. A.D. Hatch, but again, a Canary Mission website. So I'm not sure who that is. I don't recall that. During the workload, they reviewed 5,000 people and then opened their investigations. On March 3rd, the task force came out. Robert F. Kennedy came out. Anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual and moral malady that sickens society and kills people, which is crazy. So are there racism task force? Like if we were all under investigation under racism task forces, would our side be like cheering that? Is Kennedy arguing for that? Does racism kill people with lethalities? It's interesting that this is the language that's being used. Anyways, so then they investigate and they issue referral letters. So these two, Khalil and Chung, they issued referrals. They said these two have to go. And though there was neither an allegation nor evidence of somebody distributing flyers, Watson asserted that Homeland is concerned with the distribution of Hamas-authored flyers. Okay, so they're spreading messages from Hamas. And they say, well, this is not good. We don't want you in our country. Saying this is creating a hostile environment for Jewish students and indicating support for a designated terrorist organization. And again, all you could do is in Trump's executive orders, just say, if you're here on a visa and you're creating a hostile environment, you're not allowed on our campuses. Why does it have to be a hostile environment for Jewish students? That now makes the law content specific. or you can't support foreign terrorist organizations. Leave it alone. It's very generic. Just apply that. But for some reason, we got to put that phrase in there for some reason. HSI would initiate removal charges on March 6, 2025. Homeland issued another return for Mahmoud Khalil. We've covered that case. And that, again, is being battled. They said that he created a hostile environment for Jewish students, and he's identified as a prominent pro-Palestinian activist involved in anti-Semitic activities. Now, again, though there is neither an allegation nor evidence that he actually distributed the flyers, they said that he was in a leadership role. And this judge is really using a lot of bold here. And the decision continues and continues. He's going through, referencing a bunch of the trial and walking us through a lot of the evidence. So then Khalil is arrested, and we've covered some of that case, so we'll fast forward through a lot of this. But here, public officials are criticizing his speech. Man, this judge is very retired. Look at all this. He's going crazy with the bold. He's referencing conversation from the trial and saying that essentially there's not a lot of evidence these guys did something bad that would justify the compelling national security interest. SBO Armstrong said, well, yeah, they do. The presence and activities of these people have potentially serious foreign policy consequences because he's participating in anti-Semitic protest and reported intimidating the harassment of Jewish students in this one location. America First policy directive also came out. And as with other memos, there were caveats. So he's not a lawyer. The judge, man, is very detailed case. Let's fast forward through a lot, referencing the trial, referencing the transcripts. Then they sent a referral letter for somebody else. Then they recommend a revocation of the visas. So he's going through a bunch of different individuals. Here's more. Something happened here. Then they arrested this dude. 3 plainclothes officers exited a gray SUV, none initially wearing masks, and they appear to wait. Then Oz Turk appears. Again, neither are masked, but the closest is wearing a baseball cap with a hooded jacket. He approaches her, grasps her hands, and says, "Your visa is revoked." She appeared confused, pulled away, and then they showed who they were. And in the video, she says, "Why are you hiding your faces?" A fair question, says this judge. Why are they? Well, it's because their side is shooting at ICE agents and following them home. HSI personnel said, well, we're permitted to wear masks because we need to protect our identity since these people want us dead. Then she was processed and sent out. And so they say that their speech is chilled. Man, this is a very long decision. Let me see how long this goes. It just keeps going and going and going. We're going to spare you some of the scroll to see if this judge can come up with some analysis and conclusion for us. And we get to some of it. So he's going to give us some standing analysis. Going to find that they have standing, obviously, to sue. Another maybe 100 pages on that. Thank you, Judge. And we're going to fast forward through a lot of this all the way until we get to the conclusion, because he's just, I don't even know, it's like most of the trial transcript he's including in this. And here is where we get to the end. Oh my goodness. Longest opinion ever. And here's what we come from. The court is going to have a remedy now, though there is scholarship that urges otherwise. There can be no constraint of any sort of the speech of the president, be that speech statesman-like, magnanimous, or more. The president has a right to speak. Other public officials can be subject to injunctive orders. And I don't even know what a hearing. This judge has gone nuts, dude. I first heard these words of Reagan back in 2007 when my son quoted them in La Day celebration speech. What? Now we're talking about his son? I was deeply moved and hold these words before me as I discharge judicial duties. As I've read and reread the record in this case, listened widely, and reflected extensively, I've come to believe that President Trump truly understands and appreciates the full import of Reagan's message. Yet I fear he has drawn from it a darker, more cynical message. I fear President Trump believes the American people are so divided that today they will not stand up for, fight for, and defend our most precious constitutional values so long as they're lulled into thinking their own personal interests are not affected. Is he correct? Question. A hearing on the remedy will be promptly scheduled, signed by the judge. Okay. And then he's quoting postcards. P.S. The next time you're in Boston, the postmark on the card is from the Philadelphia area. Stop in the courthouse. So maybe this is just some weird quirk this judge does. Okay, this might be one of the most insane decisions we've ever read. I think he kind of just trailed off there. Maybe as like the Ambien kicked in as he was writing this opinion. And I don't really know what the conclusion is. So, all right, a hearing on the remedy will promptly be scheduled. So what are the constitutional rights of these foreign visa holders? Judge says their free speech rights preempts Marco Rubio and President Trump and Kristi Noem's visa granting rights. And I can pretty much guarantee this will be appealed immediately. And we'll see what the courts say about it. And hopefully the Supreme Court comes through and clarifies for us what the standard is. Are foreigners entitled to the same First Amendment rights and privileges as everybody else? Or as visa holders, can their visas be revoked if their speech leads to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security thinking that they're national security threats? Do they get the right to say, you're not welcome, get out? Of course, we'll see. That decision was a bizarre one, but it is begging the question. We have a lot of free speech case law that is about content neutral restrictions. We call them time, place, and manner restrictions. You can say you can't protest at this location. You can't use a bullhorn after 2 a.m. And you got to follow these basic neutral restrictions. But if you start coming in and you start saying, well, this is anti-Semitic, I don't know how that's any different than targeting any other specific subgroups of people in the country. And then if you limit action based on that subgroup, now you're singling people out and you're becoming constitutionally suspect. The next question, of course, are those so related that one usurps the other? They came here, they exercised their free speech. They're free to do that. You're also free to revoke their visas. So they can go speak back home, not in our country. And this is the entire point of why this issue agitates me so much. We shouldn't even be having to fight about this. They just should not be here arguing about these foreign conflicts, trying to ensnare America into it. Now, many people in the country feel they have to join a team. It's team Muslim or it's team Jew or team whatever. And in the meantime, everybody's just slicing each other all over the place and having to duke this out, where we should be focused on America and not have to invest all of our time in foreign conflicts. We'll keep our eye on this. Thanks for joining as we do. All right. Golly, you need to take a deep breath after that one. All right, let's see. Is there anything cooking out there on the day? Are we going to have a shutdown? Let's check back in with Poly Market and see what's going on. 93% chance. And here's what's happening in Congress. Any activity? Senate is facing a midnight deadline. And here is what we got over on C-SPAN. The U.S. Senate returns facing a midnight deadline to fund the government and avert a shutdown. And no audio's coming out of this thing, but... Oh, it's Amy Klobuchar. And there's John Thune over there. Who's this fella? Man, he had his, his eyes like, oh gosh, how late are we going to be here? And honestly, the cables are not really covering it either. They just said over at CNN that government is about to shut down after the votes fail. So that doesn't sound good. All right. And
Mr. Rounds, aye.
Mr. Rounds. Let's see if he's there. And my trackpad just died too. So we're going to see if we can plug it in and get this thing working. Because this is how I scroll on the show. All right, there we go. Both votes failed, says John McGarvey. So the shutdown is coming. Presumably. Which will be good news. And the Democrats can explain why they love illegal aliens so much to America. All right, now. We've got some other business to attend to here today. And let's jump into this one because this one is ridiculous. The Los Angeles sheriff now getting sued by Harmeet Dillon over the Second Amendment, and this one is outrageous. We'll go through the complaint. It's very short, but it's pretty wild because according to the document, if you're in California and you want to get a concealed carry license, they are so slow that between January 24 and March 2025, so over a year, in California, they got 3,982 applications that came through. You want a concealed carry license, you submit your application. Of these, they approved exactly 2, which is 0.05%. That's it. It's a disaster. It's intentionally trying to deprive you of your rights, and now they're getting sued for it. So here's what they wrote over at the DOJ. The Civil Rights Division today filed a lawsuit against the sheriff due to this pattern or practice of infringing the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens who want to carry with CCW permits. This lawsuit is the first affirmative lawsuit in support of gun owners filed by the U.S. Department of Justice. Let's go. On March 27, the division initiated the first of its kind Second Amendment investigation due to numerous complaints of unreasonable delays in CCW permitting decisions by the Los Angeles County Sheriff. I'm like, oh, another one came in? Just put it in the stack over there. After analysis of data and documents spanning over 8,000 CCW permit applications, the division today filed suit seeking relief on behalf of Americans. We had Pam Bondi said, the Second Amendment protects the fundamental constitutional right of law-abiding citizens to bear arms. Los Angeles County may not like that, but the Constitution does not allow them to infringe upon it. This Department of Justice will continue to fight for the Second Amendment. Thank you, Pam. Harmeet Dillon also said, the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. Don't get the words twisted. This lawsuit seeks to stop LA and their egregious pattern and practice of delaying law-abiding citizens their right to bear arms. And if you or someone you know has applied for a permit and you've not received a reply, please contact their email, community.secondamendmentca@usdoj.gov, and go get your justice. If you're a California resident, now's the time, baby. They're going to be processing those like, oh crap, Harmeet's suing. Stamp it. Next, stamp it. And just keep running those through probably. We'll see. But here is the lawsuit. Not a huge one. It comes in from Harmeet Dillon, who is the #1 fan of LawTube in America. She loves what we do here. She doesn't. And Bilal Esseli. I thought it was Bill. Is that his real name? Or is that a typo? All right, we got United States of America, Pam Bondi and the DOJ suing Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and Robert Luna. They say, all right, we've had enough of this garbage. The U.S. and United States of America, we're now suing the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and Robert in his official capacity. And we make the following allegations against him, saying the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has systematically denied thousands of law-abiding Californians their fundamental Second Amendment right to bear arms outside the home. Not through outright refusal, of course, but through a deliberate pattern of unconscionable delay that renders this constitutional right meaningless in practice. Oh no, we give them out. We give like one out every, 2 years. Saying, the scope of this constitutional violation is staggering Between January 24 and March 25, defendants, California, they got 3,982 applications for new concealed carry licenses. And of these, they approved exactly 2. So 3,980 still in the stack. Now, that cannot be explained by legitimate disqualifying factors alone. It's ridiculous. This is not bureaucratic inefficiency. This is systematic obstruction of constitutional rights. Thank you, Harmeet. #1 fan. The mechanics of this obstruction are equally damning. Defendants force applicants to wait an average of 281 days. Over 9 months, you could have a whole baby. We do. Here, many times. Just to begin processing their applications, with some waiting as long as 1,030 days, nearly 3 years. You're like, no, I've already been, actually, I don't even need my CCW. I've already been shot and killed 3 times. Thank you. I live in LA. Yeah. No, I'm dead already. So thank you for that. Oh, I got it. Great. I'm 107 now. Dead. Thank you. The median delay is 372 years, which I don't even know how they have good data because they only did 0.05%. These delays far exceed California's own laws and their own statutory requirement. They say licensing authorities must actually give initial determinations within 90 days. This is a flagrant disregard for both the state law and their own constitution, our constitution and their own state law. The human cost is profound, says Harmeet. As of May 2025, approximately 2,768 applications for new licenses remain pending, with interviews scheduled as late as November 2026. You got to go talk to somebody in California. You're like, why do you need a gun? Oh, yeah? Well, what's your opinions about this? I don't even know how it works, but man, you got to get out of California. Like if they're taking your guns from you, that's a pretty good indicator. Look what's happening in Canada and the UK. More than 2 years after some applications were first submitted, they've been waiting around. Numerous applicants simply gave up. They just withdrew their applications. Their rights have been infringed and they might be dead already, often after waiting months in a deliberately stalled process. These are not abstract statistics. They represent thousands of law-abiding citizens who have been stripped of their constitutional right to self-defense outside their homes. Now, the Supreme Court made a decision. It's called New York State Rifle and Pistol versus Bruin, 2022. And the Supreme Court said this, that the Second and the 14th Amendments protect an individual's right to carry a handgun for self-defense outside the home. It's a right. But here in California, they have constructed an administrative labyrinth, man, that's good, designed to frustrate and to ultimately deny this fundamental right to virtually everyone who seeks to exercise their beautiful Second Amendment privileges. This case concerns rights, not privilege. This case concerns more than just administrative delays. It addresses a coordinated effort by the Californians to nullify through bureaucratic obstruction what they cannot deny through law. When constitutional rights are deliberately delayed beyond any reasonable time frame, they are effectively denied. The United States brings this action, and we want to sue. We're going to restore the Second Amendment rights in California, baby. And defendants have systematically violated these laws, and law-abiding Californians need to exercise their constitutional rights without facing years of unjustified delay. Now, the plaintiffs are the United States of America, and the defendant is the sheriff, and he issues the licenses. And his name is Robert Luna. He's responsible for all this madness over there. And the court has jurisdiction. We're suing. Venue's appropriate in your court. And here's the background. In the state of California, carrying a concealed firearm is a crime unless one of several specific exemptions applies. How is that law still on the books? It's just because it's concealed? Like nobody sued on that? Persons with a valid license to carry a concealed weapon issued under the licensing regime are exempt from the general, like they charge you with a crime for that? Not if you're a felon. Yeah, okay. Arizona's laws are much different, are exempt from the general prohibition on carrying a concealed firearm. In his official capacity, Luna discharges his duties individually through the deputies, and he appoints them to do this. county sheriffs in California, including Luna, they're the licensing authorities, and he has to accept the applications and issue the licenses. Now, a California license to carry a concealed firearm is valid for no more than 2 years, certain exceptions. Under California law, licensing authorities must do the following: determine whether you're disqualified. So if you're a felon, or I don't know if you're an illegal, do they count that? Within 90 days of receiving the completion application, they should be doing something. They're not. They also should be giving written notice within 120 days. That's all in the law. Now, by letter dated March 27th, the U.S. DOJ called over there and they sent a letter to Sheriff Luna. Hey, Sheriff, we're investigating you. We are receiving a bunch of complaints that you're unduly burdening or effectively denying Second Amendment rights of ordinary law-abiding citizens. Lengthy wait times in processing applications for concealed handgun licenses. It's like, that's interesting. What if you just impose like lengthy wait times for like abortions in California? Like, no. Yeah, we'll license that. And then you can just wait for our approval. And then our approval you'll get approved 372 days later, something like that, right? They would scream that's a constitutional right, which of course that's not even in the Constitution, but the Second Amendment is. So they can just slow roll certain procedures and processes, but not others. Curious. Now, during the investigation, the sheriff, through its counsel, provided information. They said that we had 8,400 applications. There were 3,900 new, 42 renewals. For each applicant, and that's like it. That's the only amount of guns there are in California. People who have CCWs, that's it. It's a huge state. It's like 10,000 a year for millions of people. Crazy numbers. Based on the information provided by the LASD through its counsel, well, they got to go through a process. They get a completed application. Then they have to interview you. Are you a good person? Do you vote Democrat? Okay. Then we're going to give you your .22 rifle. The LASD received approximately 3,982 applications. As of May 8th, only 2 got approved. A bunch more came in. 1,200 were withdrawn because they're like, I'm already dead. I don't need it anymore. He's dead now. For the approximately 2,700 pending applications, interviews are already scheduled for as late as November 2026. We'll get to you. Yeah, you can have your Second Amendment right for November 26. And all current abortion needs are also postponed to November 2026. So come on back here and we'll talk about your constitutional rights to abortion back then. The median number of days that the LASD took to advance an application was 372 days. Yeah, it's interesting. The maximum number of days recorded was 1,030 days. And so they say, we're suing you. We're suing under U.S. code. We want declaratory relief. We got privileges and immunities and rights secured by the Constitution, which includes the Second Amendment. It protects the right of law-abiding individuals to keep and bear arms, both within their homes and outside of their homes for lawful purposes. The Second Amendment applies to the states and political subdivisions through the 14th Amendment and the incorporation of the Bill of Rights. Law-abiding citizens carrying concealed weapons is conduct protected by the Second Amendment. Law-abiding citizens carrying a concealed weapon with a license is conduct protected by the Second Amendment. That's Bruin, right? So how is California now charging people with a crime for that? What? California state law expressly requires you provide information about a license. Defendants are governmental authorities, and we're suing. I'm sorry, they are being sued. They're the defendants. They have to process the applications and work with the constitutional rights. So this systemic practice of delaying of the processing of these permits is depriving people of their constitutional rights. They're denying them prompt determination of their applications. They're failing to provide them any meaningful notice of why their application is being delayed. And they're forcing applicants to abandon their constitutional rights. And so accordingly, they're engaging in a pattern and practice of conduct by law enforcement officers that deprives people of rights secured and protected by the Constitution. And didn't they swear an oath to do differently, to uphold and defend the Constitution? Which would include the Second Amendment, fellas. unless stopped by this court, they will continue to deprive Americans, Californians, they're Americans too, most of them, probably most of them, depends on the region, constitutional right to bear arms outside of their homes in California. It's like in California, you have to get a permit and then an interview before you can do any of this. So they're suing. Thank you, Harmeet, for bringing this one, and Julie A. Hamill for bringing it, and Bilal is his name. I thought it was Bill, but it's Bilal. Bilal Esseli, saying a declaration that their pattern of practice violates the Second Amendment. A declaration that approving virtually no new concealed carry permit applications is also a violation. And they want a permanent injunction prohibiting Californian sheriffs from continuing to violate the law, signed off by Harmeet Dillon, LawTube's #1 fan for the Civil Rights Division. And we love Harmeet here, and we're glad that she's unleashing on behalf of the Second Amendment. We'll keep our eye on this one. We'll see what the judge in California does. Very likely to deny it, but we're opening up the floodgates on this. And if we can say that California's CCW criminal charges and interview, what the heck is that? You know what we would call that if we were talking about abortion as a right, which they do? You would call that an undue burden. You remember that from Casey versus Planned Parenthood? Yeah, it's an undue burden. You can't make a woman listen to an ultrasound and say, you know, it's like beating heart right there. He's like moving around. He's like, don't kill me. You're like, you want to listen to this? Like, that's an undue burden. You can't make a woman do that. Interesting. Well, here, what is this undue burden that's being exercised on your Second Amendment right? You can't even get a gun until you're dead already. So we'll keep our eye on this one. I know in California, things are going to be an uphill battle. We're in the Central District of California. We'll see if it goes to Judge William Alsup, who's handled some others. But we'll, of course, keep our eye on this one. The Second Amendment is a right, and Californians can't take it away from American citizens. Hopefully, the courts agree. We'll be back covering this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my friends. What a beautiful day it is. And while we're here, let's just pop in over on the cables and see what the latest is with this shutdown sitch, because this is coming across on all the panels. And let's just listen in because it's hot right now, baby. All right, so here's what we've got.
Lose the shutdown wars.
Mike Johnson is live right now.
What's clicking there that in shutdowns past perhaps didn't with the American people?
Well, because the American people are smart. They could see what's happened. The House Republicans did our job. The Senate Republicans are trying to. We passed the clean resolution, a simple, clean resolution. Why? It's very important. We're trying to get Congress to work again, the regular appropriations process. We're supposed to do 12 separate bills that are carefully debated.
I remember those days.
Remember? We haven't done it in a long time, but we're forcing the muscle memory back. The problem is we ran out of clock because it takes time to do that. End of the fiscal year is tonight at midnight. So we just did a simple, clean resolution, give us till November 21 to finish the process. Chuck Schumer is stopping it for raw political purposes. People see through that. And imagine what it is he's arguing. He wants to give free health care to illegal aliens.
But he says that's not true. Democrats say it's expanding Medicaid, getting dollars back from Medicaid, and it leaves some room for unauthorized immigrants. I call them undocumented Democrats, but they're unauthorized immigrants in some cases. And there's discretion to use the monies toward individuals who are not here lawfully.
Wrong. Read his own legislation. He filed a CR as a counterproposal, and it has all the details in it. What they're trying to do is roll back the reforms, the very important, necessary reforms that we included in the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. It's had the desired effect. The CBO, which is, you know, the neutral arbiter, supposedly, that the Democrats cite all the time, came out 3 weeks ago and said it worked. It's reducing premiums. Why? Because we got able-bodied young men off of Medicaid. They should have never been there in the first place. And we got illegal aliens off as well. Millions of people removed from the rolls, which makes health care more affordable for everybody. They want to roll that back. Why? Because they want illegal aliens to be voters for their side.
So
that's what this is about.
The three who voted for the GOP bill tonight in the Senate, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Fetterman, Pennsylvania, and Angus King of Maine. So is he an independent? I don't
he's kind of an
whatever.
independent.
He votes with the Democrats. He votes with the Democrats. So those are the three. So explain to the American people what happens. Let's say you could win this shutdown war here. What happens after the government's funded until November 21st? What in that interim is going to happen so we don't end up in the same position again?
Right. It's a very important period of time that will allow the appropriators in both parties,
the spenders of our money,
to do their job. They got 12 separate appropriations bills done through the committee in the House. The Senate's working through them as well. We just need more time to process it through both chambers. So if we have until November 21, we are very optimistic, Laura. We can get Congress to work again. We can do separate appropriations bills instead of that omnibus monster at the end of the year that everybody hates.
The cromnibus, whatever we call it. It's a nightmare, and it's always the nightmare before Christmas. It's always right up until then. Speaker Johnson, you have a very, very, very narrow majority. At a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that the Republicans build on this very slim majority next year?
We're going to win the midterms, absolutely.
Definitely.
We're going to have a big victory, and I think we can expand that majority so we can keep going. We have to give President Trump 4 years and not 2. Imagine if the Democrats took over the House. They'd impeach him.
They're getting ready for the investigations. They're already ramping it up.
Exactly.
Speaker Johnson, thanks for coming in. Great to see you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so that's Mike Johnson. We also got Poly Market is over here. They're explaining 95% chance for the shutdown since everything just failed in the Senate. So that is likely happening now. And there's your boy back on the screen. All right, let's check out what Coons has to say about this, and then we'll hear from you.
They did not need to be lectured by a former Sunday weekend show Fox
don't
TV
be
host
fat, then.
over what it means to live out the warrior ethos. They understand. These are men and women who have had command of units in combat, who've had to write letters home to loved ones after they've lost troops and soldiers in combat, who understand the threat that we face from the PRC, and who understand that equipping, training, arming, and deploying our military to confront the challenges of China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, that's the real and serious work that they should be doing. And today's session was largely a distraction from that.
Well, and they'll be able to run faster and fight harder if they lose 30 pounds, is what it sounds like from Pete Hegseth. And I didn't see everybody in the crowd there, but, you know, we want a fit military. All right, so my friends, it has been a beautiful stream. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sending in some of these donos and super chats. We'll check back in with Poly Market as we wrap it up. But let's say what's up and see what you have to say about all of this and more. And we're going to have some great segments. We had a great, we read through Charlie Kirk's letter this morning, which I thought was very... Well, we had a lot of comments on it. So we read through the full thing and we commented on it. And I think the big takeaway is, man, we lost a real powerful force on our side, and it's a bummer. So we read through it. We talked about that. We also talked about Hakeem's meme and the meltdown that happened this morning. All that was very fun. And so those segments will be coming out later if you want to catch those. Today, John and Donut Mind Me clipping for us. Thank you, gentlemen. We've got here a meme from South Park, shut it down. And it's looking like that's going to be happening. 95% over on Poly Market as the clock ticks away. Grim Wolf, what's up? Grim Wolf, newest membo in the house. We're going to have an after party here in a few minutes. So if you'd like to join us, we'll see you there. The Rubos are here. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth delivered an amazing historical speech, one for the ages. And looks like that was the full speech. We played a couple clips of that this morning where Hegseth came out and he's like, all right, listen up, Fats. Time to work out. Thought that was pretty interesting. And he used that word, and you're not allowed to use that word. I get, yelled at when I use it, even though I used to be I'm a former fat. Go look at my early videos. You'll see it. Anyways, Chubby's here. The LA sheriff violating 2A is nothing new. They've been doing it statewide for decades, and all the do-nothing SCOTUS ever does is make some small change and send it back down. Yes, like we don't cover a lot of the Second Amendment stuff here. Maybe we should. I'm like, what? California is like making your right to carry contingent on some interview with some freakoid over there who's going to judge whether you can have a gun or not? What kind of constitutional right is that? It's ridiculous. Send back down to the California courts knowing damn well they're just going to twist and change and have it go right back ad nauseum until SCOTUS decides to actually do something about the repeated violations of the Second Amendment from California. None of this matters. SCOTUS is 100% complicit in all 2A violations in California and any other states doing the same. Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't familiar with how kind of ridiculous California was, but I'm glad that Harmeet is now standing in the breach, so to speak, and trying to solve this. So hopefully this case percolates up to the Supreme Court. And maybe if we have a DOJ that actually stands behind the Second Amendment, doesn't just do it by, for virtue signaling, maybe we'll get a nice showing there. Linda Walling, what's up, Linda? Thank you for the cup of joe. Delicious little caffeine boost. We appreciate that. Linda Walling, thank you for being here. You're amazing. James Kipp, 1 month as a membo. First month's the hardest. Gets easier from there. Says Bondi's message targets Soros and his mini-me son. Yeah, it was a lot, man. I mean, she said, everybody, stand up, get to work, and go. And we hope they do. Hey, Linda Walling, another one, Linda. Thanks for being number one in the chat, too, and supporting our work on the day. You're amazing. Linda Walling in the house. Alana Noble says, you know that Maxine Waters is full of baby doo-doo. It's true. Oh, and along with Jerry Nadler, too. Oh, by the way, I still have Medicare and Medicaid, but thanks, Congresswoman. From Alana Noble. Good to see you, Alana. Yeah, Maxine Waters is just, I think just trying to keep it all under control and has been for a couple decades. One old guy's opinions. Says Maxine James Jump Back Brown. I don't know what that means exactly. Probably racist. I don't know. Maybe it is. Waters. And I don't know what that one is either, but it's poop emoji. Thank you, one old guy. Alana Noble says, you know that Maxine Waters? Another one from Alana Noble. Thank you, Alana Noble. I think you sent it twice. Thank you for doing that, Alana Noble. Good to have you in the house. Thanks for being a membo and number one in the chat. Here's this dude. We love that dude. Yep. You know that look. Job well done, sir. Hey, the average mountain man. Good to have you, the average mountain man. I'm sure you're very much above average. Says, I'm a retired disabled veteran. See, told you. And while in combat, had my pay withheld because of a shutdown. The same happened when I came home a second time. This is the average mountain man and a disabled veteran. Says, I say shut it down and let the Dems burn their final point of leverage on this vote. Yeah, that's an interesting endorsement. And, we say shut it down. It's like, we don't want people to be hurt ultimately. We don't want our veterans to go, without food or without money and support. Our service members, right, who are maybe going to get hit with this. We've got some good people in our community, of course, who work for the federal government. We don't want people to be, adversely impacted by the government shutdown. But it's, it's a natural part of our society. I mean, we all had to lock down. We all had to close our businesses for 14 days just to slow the spread and whatever. And so it's just kind of the ebb and flow. Our government is not immune from these cycles, and they have to spend appropriately and follow budgets, and our country's friggin' broke. So, and we also don't want the Democrats to hold our country hostage, right? So we really appreciate that, disabled veteran. Thank you for endorsing what is actually better for the country, understanding we have to go through these ebbs and flows. And I understand that there's back pay that's delivered once the government turns back on. So you might go without pay for 3 weeks. I think last time it was 35 days, but then you get back pay and all the things. So, it's part of the natural cycle. I wish that our government was on budget every year, on time, and was competent, but it's just not. And the average mountain man, we appreciate that. That's kind of, putting principle above personal well-being, and we appreciate that. So thank you for the dono, and thanks for being a veteran. We appreciate you. Linda Walling, another one, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Cool. The cool pair. We love the cool pair. Hey, G-Man, what's up, G-Man? These people have different morals. I'm pretty sure it's lack thereof. Yeah, it depends on who we're talking about. Been reading a lot more about communism lately and their ethical worldview, which is essentially non-existent. They don't like God. They don't like capitalism. In fact, Karl Marx said that's his goal, to destroy capitalism and Christianity. It's like, that's interesting. So you understand that if you're operating from a Christian Western worldview where you have, you know, spirituality, God, a higher power, you believe in natural rights, you believe in labor theory of property, you believe in free speech as a God-given right, as, you know, an immutable characteristic of being human that is yours, that cannot be taken away from you. If you believe that, and we thought most Americans did, we thought that that was part of being an American, was having that common value system, more or less. It's not reality anymore. We have a bunch of foreigners in our country who don't have any understanding of that, don't care about that, don't want that, disagree with that, actually think that you are the enemy because of that belief. And it's a growing contingent. And it's a very big contingent in the Democratic Party. They're going to elect a communist who believes in all of that. Okay, that's their worldview. Whether they want to admit it or not, they cover themselves up with stupid labels like climate change or trans or whatever. But it's all subversion and communism. Leonard, there is a video of ICE agents rescuing detainees in Dallas. I saw it. Yeah. Did the corrupt media even mention this? Yeah, I saw that. They were like saving these deportees. And we don't want deportees to be shot, but the Democrats apparently do. At least their side that is writing anti-fascist statements on bullets is. Economath says SCOTUS precedent exists. The government can deport aliens on bases. It's allowed in federal statutes. The First Amendment can't save them. Turner versus Williams, 1904, still good law. Man, thank you for that. Good to have you, Economath. Still good law. Yeah, and for me, I don't know what the latest jurisprudence is on visas and how it, interfaces with the First Amendment. This judge seems to think it overrides, the First Amendment, and foreign rights override national security interest of the country. I'm not so sure the courts will agree with that. If you're a citizen, right, that's a whole separate conversation. But if you're here on a visa, the law gives you rules for approving and withdrawing visas. That's all he's using. Stefan Bonav says, hey, Rob, I understand you don't have time to chat. So I sent your X stream at this time as a comment, some details that were missed about the autism crisis, the Iran boom, and church fires over on X. Stefan, thank you, Stefan, for sending it over there. We're going to check out X in just a second, so we'll see you over there. James Kipp, I worked at the LA County Hospital ER. There was a 2-year waiting list for gallbladder surgeries, and 70% were illegal aliens. ERs can't turn anyone away. It's a $75,000 fine. Right, exactly. So they say, well, it's illegal for illegal aliens to get healthcare benefits. And it's like, okay, they're not signing up for Obamacare. Maybe they are, I don't know. But they're getting medical treatment. They're getting medical care, and somebody has to pay for that. Who's paying for all the illegal aliens who are apparently, destitute and poor and just trying to make ends meet in America? How are they paying for their gallbladder surgeries? We are. That's the point. Thank you, James Kipp. Thanks for working in an ER. I've heard the same too, and I haven't looked at the stats on this, but it's like it's billions a year. Billions from ERs that's going to illegal aliens. So who's paying for that? We are. Economath. A phobia is an irrational fear. It's not irrational to fear adherents of a faith that commands non-believers are to be unalived or subjugated. No, I don't. I agree completely. Yeah. And and I'm also not against, if you get punched in the face 9 times by a certain, group or category or something like that, just pick one, and you don't learn anything from that. It's like, okay, not everybody's the same, but if you get punched 9 times, like there's probably a good propensity that the 10th interface with this, idea or segment is also going to punch you in the face. Then you kind of be a fool, right? Or if somebody says specifically, this is what I believe and this is what I'm going to do, you're a fool for not believing it. And we know what the communists say. King of Biltong in the house says try our Biltong, baby. More than 50% protein, packed with B vitamins, creatine, iron, zinc, and much more. A perfect snack addition to your weekly meal prep. Go to BiltongUSA.com, use code Robert, and you'll save 10% off. And you're going to feel nutrified and fortified on Biltong. G-Men, at the same time, the DOJ is attempting to uphold Biden's policies against FFLs. On the one hand, they are for the Second Amendment, and on the other, they're against it, from G-Men. Yeah, that's interesting. We have to pay more attention to the jurisprudence that's going on over there. What jurisdiction is that one in? White Buffalo. The California CCW problem is dependent on the county you live in. I live in Kern, and it only took 6 months. From White Buffalo. Yeah. So in Kern County, that's a different county. Now what? Yeah, so that was LA County, it sounds like. Yeah, it's a big county. Thank you for that, White Buffalo. Glad you got yours. Ridiculous. You even need to go through that. You have to get interviewed by some doofus over there. Hey, what's going on? One old guy's opinions. Says the DC judge, what you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response was that even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. We are all now dumber for having been here today. Okay, a simple wrong would have done. Thank you for that. Yeah, the judge had some good opinions, like the anti-Semitism carve-outs specifically, I think are constitutionally suspect, and it's been that way forever. It's not an anti-Semitic thing to say, but you could just substitute anti-Semitism for anything. And if Joe Biden came out and said, actually, BLM is going to be like, now we're going to have a BLM task force, they may have. Remember they had the disinformation governance czar and all that, like that board? We lost our friggin' mind over that. So yeah, and the judge, called that out, but at the same point, I think he's extending, they didn't need that to exercise Rubio's power. If you support foreign terrorism and you can make an argument for that, then your visa should be revoked. We don't want foreign terrorist supporters in our country. That simple. It doesn't need to be Jewish, doesn't need to be, anything Palestinian, doesn't need to be Ukrainian, whatever. You're on a visa, you're on your best behavior, or else get out. G-Men, I like that. There should be a 10-month waiting period or a cooling off period to get an abortion, just like some states have with guns. Just come back in like 9 to 10 months and we'll see. Make sure you really need it. Make sure you really need the abortion and you're not going to go kill anybody, Hey, what's going on? Thank you, G-Men, for that one. We got The New Life. Good to see you, The New Life. Thanks for all you do, Robert. Thank you, The New Life. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for your dono and support. Very nice to have you. Dennis Madera says, no citizenship, no last name, no ability to read English. Come to California. Get a commercial license to drive a truck over law-abiding citizens, and you're unable to carry a weapon to defend yourselves in California against the illegal invasion that is happening, where they're torching cars and waving their foreign flags on the streets, spitting and throwing at ICE officers, obstructing the movement of detainees, and more. It's California. And it's a one-party state. They want that for the whole country. It's a little incubator for their communist hellscape. Sparks, great to have you. Thank you, Sparks, for the dono and for being a membo. See you in the after party. Jonathan Haynes, I'm late in and just got to the judgment. How do any of these plaintiffs even have standing? What is their injury? Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, I wish we could have got some more insight out of this opinion, but it was 161 pages of basically this judge just like copy and pasting huge portions of the transcript of everything that went down. Like, the dude's just bored. He's on retire status. He's like seen too many reruns of whatever he's watching. And so just decided to write all this out. So I'm sure he does address standing. Let's just take a quick look, see if we can parse through it. Standing. They have standing. And again, he's like citing a bunch of case law. In sum, the law of objective, chill-based First Amendment standing applies here. As Justice Thomas wrote, it's well settled that plaintiffs may establish standing based on the deterrent or chilling effect of government regulations. Okay, for what? Citizens? Is that what he was talking about? You think Justice Clarence Thomas was saying that applied to illegal, not illegal, these are people here who are on visas, to foreign visa holders? Now, on the merits, the court disagrees with Trump. With the plaintiff standing witnesses, they've only shown subjective fear and unreasonable self-censorship, they say. In particular, these witnesses, this professor, Ali Al-Ali, he's a lawful permanent resident. He works with these foreign organizations. He testified to a long history of scholarly work about Palestine and all these things, and about Israel's military occupation. Great, he can go teach that crap in Palestine. Professor Ali credibly testified that news of Khalil and comments from Trump are going to alter her international travel plans. Okay, so this professor who wants to teach America about Israeli occupation or whatever that is in our college campuses and instigate more agitation in America is going to have travel problems. So that's a real actual injury for her. And so now she has standing that overrides Marco Rubio's decision as the Secretary of State. Thanks for asking about it. Glad we looked that up. Tim Jake, as someone who served 38 years in the DOD, thank you, sir, 20 active, 18 civilian, I will say unequivocally, there are too many flag officers and many are more about politics than leadership. Flag officers. Is that, I don't know, is that a term of art or did you mean fat officers? Because that's what Hegseth said. Could be either. I don't know though. Yeah, and I think like any other bureaucracy, right, it just gets perverted, and you got to have from time to time a refresh of the mission and bring people back to the base layer. This is why we exist. This is our purpose. It's not for inclusivity and diversity, the military. It's supposed to be a lethal fighting force. And if you can't run up a flight of stairs, you're disqualified. Uncle Bozy. A Mustang is an officer who was promoted up through the enlisted ranks. Pete Hegseth is the ultimate Mustang. No doubt about that, dude. He's running the DOD. Yeah, to enlist and then now run the DOD. Yeah, that's moving on up. Hey, playing hooky. Membo for 10 months. Great to have you playing hooky. 10th's a baby plus one. Got a new baby in the house. Great to have you here. Economath says, SCOTUS has upheld a Turner rationale. It's called Kleindienst versus Mandel. The court followed Mandel in Fialo versus Bell and Trump versus Hawaii. Man, look at that. Case law, baby. Yeah, Pinochet's helicopter tours says, if you are playing chess and your opponent punches you in the face, you aren't going to win by getting better at chess. It's a great comment. Yeah, it's true. Because they just keep, this is our argument about being kicked in the nads, right? It's like you're supposed to be manly, not supposed to kick each other in the nads. But if they're kicking you in the nads, well, then the rules of gentlemanly, conflict are off because they're hitting you below the belt. So if you don't operate by that, then you're just going to keep getting kicked in the nads. And you're like, how come they keep doing this? Well, because they're not following the rules that you're following. The Hook. Rob, have you read Jack Posobiec's book on communism? Pretty good read. I have not read that one, no, but I would like to. So thank you for shouting that out. Shout out to Jack Posobiec. I met him. Nice dude. When I was back in DC this last trip over with the Empower Oversight Cruise. He was there at the celebration of Emil Beauvais over on the Court of Appeals. So shout out to Jack Posobiec. Good dude, fun to talk to, and say hello to. Sharpie guy. Rob, Pelosi spooked me this morning. After seeing Maxine Waters this afternoon, even more spooky, I think I have it figured out. If you're ugly and evil on your insides, eventually it's going to exude to your outside aura. And you're going to scare the HE double hockey sticks right out of anyone you encounter and attempt to sell your awfulness, right? Yeah, that's right. It's like the dark side. Like, remember how the emperor got his face all contorted and twisted up because he was, on the side of evil? Same thing happens in real life. So I want to meet my Lord and Savior and absolutely be on the other side of Jesus's judgments. Don't y'all, watchers? Yeah, I think we all, want a little slice of that heavenly bliss. You're onto something there, Sharpie guy. Thank you for the dono. Freedom Gear. Rob. Hi, Rob. How do we become a sponsor? I have a new product on BajaMate.com. It's a pool product. As an Arizona company, I'd like to get the word out. BajaMate.com. If you have a pool, we have a table kit and adapter that converts the small pool sleeve to allow full-size umbrellas. You have to see it to appreciate it. Let me know if you have a pool. I'll send you a kit. I don't, but I used to build swimming pools. I used to design, permit, bid, and then basically GC the entire project. So I used to build a lot of them. And this is a pretty cool device. I know a lot about pools. I can talk to you about stay right pumps, Pentair pumps, heat heaters, BTUs. I used to lay the gas. I basically did everything. It was a great experience, man. I love building pools because you got to see like a whole backyard of dirt actually transform into something. Great stuff. Great times. I kind of miss construction and all that. When you're done, it's like, wow, this whole thing. It's pretty cool. So that is pretty cool. So my friends, if you want to get the best umbrella for your swimming pool that you could possibly imagine, it's an AZ company. He does Freedom Gear. His name is Freedom Gear. He's a supporter over here. BajaMate.com. Get your umbrellas from our friend here on the show. Thanks for saying that, my friend, and for being here. Hopefully you get some sales over there. And if you want to talk more, you can send me an email, robert@spotlightlawyer.com. And I don't know what we can do, but that sounds like it's a great product. Hopefully you're doing well with it. Hey, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Normal men naturally feel protective of women and don't want to watch them struggle. It's not fair to the guys. They perform their duties and the females heavy lifting too. This is a good move for the military. It's fair. Yeah, I think this is interesting. So I didn't serve in the military, so it's hard for me to, comment exactly on what's going on in there. But, I've been on, teams and been in groups, and I can understand that desire. The closest thing that I can think of is when I had to wrestle a girl in high school. And I didn't want to hurt her, right? I think I've told this story before. But the first round was like a weird round, like 3 rounds of wrestling. We were the same weight class. She was like nationally ranked in women's or something. And I was young. I think I was like a freshman. But I was a varsity. I was on varsity 4 years. I was a pretty decent wrestler. But I was wrestling this gal. First round, she was all in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I was like slamming her. She's like, ah. I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like beating up my sister or something. Like this is very strange and awkward. Then the coach came in and he smacked me in the head, like as hard as I've ever been hit in the head. And he put his finger in my face and he's like, you get out there and you destroy her, or whatever he said. I'm like, well, holy crap. So then I went out and then I did that. And like I pinned her in like, 15 seconds or whatever. But she was like screaming the whole time, like squirreling, like, I'm dying, you're killing me. And I'm like, I'm murdering this girl right now. It felt very awkward. So, I understand that if you're a dude in the military and you're like, hey, okay, you're going up to combat against this woman, like put on the gloves or whatever. You're going to hit each other with the things. I can understand that. It's like, all right, going to have to beat up my sister here or something like that. But she was actually good. She placed in that tournament. I think I was like first or second. I think it was like second in the tournament. She was on the stage. She was like fourth. Like she beat a bunch of other dudes because it probably freaked them out too. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm glad my coach beat me in the head over that. And I don't know if you could do that anymore. Like if somebody saw that, it might be like, child abuse or something. But I deserved it because I was acting like a little punk. Milan, what's up? Thank you, Milan, for being here. I remember it like vividly. I'm like, I'm killing this girl right now. She was a good sport afterwards. It's almost like she knew what she was doing. And it was a very different wrestling. She was like Gumby. There was like nothing to grab. She was like this, sack of potatoes that just like flopped on the thing. Pretty strong, but it was a weird ordeal. Anyways, did not appreciate it. Would much rather avoid that. Tim Jake, because if you lose, there are a bunch of dudes she beat, and like you got beat by a girl. Oh gosh. Now, maybe she would identify as a man, so it wouldn't be so weird. I don't know. Anyways, all right, Tim Jake. Flag officers are, she says she's a man. She has a mustache. Definitely looks like a woman. I don't know what's going on in sports now. Tim Jake. Flag officers are generals and admirals. Ah, okay. So there's too many flag officers, not fat officers. Hegseth said fat officers, and Tim said flag officers. Sorry for the misattribution on that, Tim. We apologize. We were just quoting Hegseth. Jeffrey Adams, Trump just posted the U.S. government shuts down at midnight. And so it is happening, my friends. White House is posting this. Senate Democrats 11 minutes ago just voted to send the government into a shutdown. Democrat shutdown is loading from the White House. Caroline said, Democrats are shutting down the federal government because Trump won't force taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegal aliens. Just think about that. Democrat elected representatives are punishing their own constituents to fight for illegals. They are deranged. And let's see what the president said on his account. He posted this. All right, so the White House posted a bunch of things. There's the meme.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats.
Content warning.
We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English.
Nope.
So they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit.
True.
You know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
All right, so we had a ton of fun with that this morning on our member stream. We'll have a segment coming out. Milan, yeah, too many fat flag officers. All right, we love our servicemen and women, but we want to shrivel up a little bit, and we're all working on it too. You know, you have a couple bad weekends, all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, what's happening down there? All right, so my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Let's see what's cracking over on X. Then we'll wrap it up and go over to our members only after party on Locals and on YouTube. We got some X comments. Neuro D, great to have you. What's up, Neuro D? Yeah, we had a technical problem at the start of the stream. We had to do a reboot and come on back. Hopefully it has been coming in loud and clear. Neuro D, thanks for sharing the Rumble. Fred says, hey, here's a serious question. How important do you need to be assassinated and not just murdered? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what that distinction is exactly. I would say maybe if you're a political person and there's a political cause behind it, then the political angle makes it an assassination because you're killing somebody for kind of a cause rather than killing them in like a crime of passion or something. Tibarama says YouTube down. Diane, what's up, Diane, says, I mentioned something over at Watcher Lodge. Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Diane Ledford. We appreciate that. Alvy Baby says, since traveling professor has standing to overturn Rubio, apparently, I might not go to LA or Portland because of things their governor said and stopping the National Guard. Does that give me standing for the courts to tell the governor to shut up and let the guard in? If you were on the right side of the political aisle, I think that would count, but it's California. So they just pervert the laws to be whatever it is they want. And my friends, thanks for following us over on X and joining us over there. Hey, here's another one that came in. Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize. Guess what? Did you know today, according to Uncle Bozy sharing this one, Hakeem is celebrating Taco Tuesday. Hakeem, he looks so good. What a nice image. Happy Taco Tuesday from Hakeem Jeffries, the man who loves illegal aliens along with the Democratic Party. Great stuff. Thank you for that one, Uncle Bozy. And man, they are so mad about this. I got some other clips. We'll hit it in the morning. All right, so my friends, let us wrap it up right there. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com and YouTube membos. Stick around. We're going to have a new link. We're going to throw it in the chat. And we'll come back for our after party, wrap up, debrief, see what else you have to say, see what else you're seeing out there, and close it out appropriately. But it has been a beautiful stream. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Big shout out. Thank you to John, Donut Mind Me, K-Bean, Carrie B. We got Neuro D, Janek, and Dog Digger, Gigum, Elliot, and Just Rhonda modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly and beautiful around here. But now, it's after party time, my friends, and we're going over there. We hope to see you over there. But if not, camera's getting knocked around over here. If not, of course, we're coming back tomorrow and we're going to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news.